Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a end of year book tag. Now there are a couple of different versions of this tag floating around. The original creator was Ariel Bassett, who does have a podcast named Books Unbound. I don't think she makes YouTube or booktube videos as much anymore, but I have taken a couple of questions from that tag, and then there is a newer version of this tag created by Destiny, and I have gotten a lot of the questions from there just because I feel like they're more relevant to me. But I really didn't want to start off this video without mentioning Ariel, because I find, especially with a lot of the newer booktubers, I don't think they know about that being the original, but I do just want to make it clear that I do credit this to Ariel, and then the rest of the questions I credit to Destiny and from her original video as well. So like I said, this is a sort of mix and match of both versions of the tag. So first are the questions from the original Ariel tag. First up is, are there any books that you started this year that you didn't finish? Have I ever? I don't think I've DNF'd so much as I have this year, but they weren't even intentional DNFs, so I didn't like write them down. I was just kind of feeling slumpy, or they weren't catching my attention, but now I feel like I really should have made note of them. But the ones that stand out to me in particular are What Lies Beyond the Veil by Harper L. Woods. I got like 30 or 40 pages in. I am actually going to be including this in an unhaul video soon, because I really didn't like the writing at the beginning, and I looked at reviews and they're not very good reviews. So I think I'm going to give this series a miss, because I really didn't like the writing from what I did read of that. Then the next book I have is the first book in the series, but I ended up putting down the third book in the series, and that is the third book in the Addicted series. That's Addicted for Now. I ended up putting this on hold right at the beginning of the year. I don't know why. Like, I was still interested enough. I really like the characters in the series and how it deals with sex addiction for the main girl character and alcohol addiction for the love interest. And I did want to know more about their story, but honestly, I was kind of finding myself feeling dragged by with this series, and so I decided to put it down. I think I am unhauling these ones as well, because I'm going to continue on Kindle if I decide to. Then I have The Friend Zone by Abby Jimenez. I got up to page 125, and then I decided to DNF this. I think I will go back to this another point, but I don't know, I just really didn't like the beginning of this book like at all. It wasn't cheating necessarily, but it was getting pretty close to it, and I just really didn't enjoy reading about it. I don't even think I like the main characters of this, but I will plan on finishing reading this at some point. But I did DNF this earlier in the year. And then I did end up putting down Lola in the Mirror by Trent Dalton as well. Now this one I put down for very personal reasons. I was going through something very specific in my life at the beginning of the year, and then I read one of the scenes in the beginning of this book, and it wasn't exactly what was happening in my life at the moment, but it was similar enough that I read it and I could not deal at all, and I don't think I'll ever actually be able to pick up this book, if I'm being honest. So I am also including that in the unhaul video. Spoilers for the next video. Then there is the question, what are 3 books you want to read before the end of the year? So it is basically the end of the year, so I don't think I'm actually going to get these read. But ideally, or I would have liked to actually get read, would be to finish Blood of Hercules by Jasmine Mass. Now I am still reading this one. I am 183 pages in, so not even halfway yet, but this is like kind of trashy, but I'm really enjoying it. It is a reverse harem. I think it's technically a dark romance. I could be wrong. When people describe this as TikTok brain rot, they're not kidding. Like, the verbiage and the sentences used in here are straight from like what you'd see from a chronically online person, but I don't care. It's just so much fun, and I would ideally like to finish that this year because it's very easy to read, and I think realistically I could actually finish that one before the end of the year. But then I have Local Woman Missing, which I'm currently reading on my Kindle. I'm not very far into this one though, but I do really want to finish this one soon. And then I have Ring Shout by Peter Jelly Clark, and this one is a little novella that I have just gotten in the mail recently. It is a horror about KKK members being possessed by demons. I have heard really good things about this one as well, but realistically I think if there's gonna be anything that I finish, it's gonna be Blood of Hercules, but we'll have to see. But ideally, in a perfect world, I would also finish those other two books. So they are the questions that I'm answering from the original video by Ariel. I'm not answering the others because they're not really relevant to me and my reading. And there's like a autumn question as well, and it is smack bang in the middle of summer here in Australia. So for the rest of the questions, these were all featured in the video made by Destiny. And first up is most disappointing book of the year. And this one actually features an unhaul that I've already gotten rid of, and that is If He Had Been With Me by Laura Nolan, I think. I was so excited for this book. It's a YA contemporary. It is an older book. I have seen so many people hype up this book and be so excited about it. So it's like the saddest thing I've ever read, and how like heart-wrenching and beautiful the writing is and everything. And I read it and I was like, this is honestly kind of garbage. Like, I did not enjoy my time reading at all. Or I just didn't like it. Like, I just thought it was poorly written. I fucking hated the main character, which I feel weird saying because the main character is like a 14-year-old girl. And normally I don't feel this passionately about hating like a teenager in a book. But like, she was so infuriating to read from. And I also didn't even cry in this book, and I cry a lot. I cry very easily, especially in storytelling. And I got to the end of the book and I was like, oh, well, duh, obviously. And I didn't care. I had really high expectations for this one. I fully went into it expecting to love it, and then I just didn't, which kind of sucks. But the other disappointing read was still a solid 3-star book for me, but that is Iris Kelly Doesn't Date by Ashley Herring Blake. This one is the third and final book in the Bright Falls series. I loved the first two books so much, like Delilah Green and Astrid Parker. But there was just something about Iris Kelly. I don't know what it was. The writing felt different. The characters didn't feel as, like, not likable, but they just didn't hit the same. And I still gave it a solid 3 stars. Like, I still enjoyed my time reading it. I was just expecting this to be like a 4 or a 5-star read. So it was disappointing for that reason. Next up is what was a underrated or an underdog book. And for that one, I'm going with The Butcher of the Forest by Premi Mohammed. I picked this one up on a whim this year, and I really enjoyed it. It is about a woman named Varys who is the only person in her village who has successfully gone into the haunting woods at the edge of their village and come out alive. Anyone else who's gone in hasn't come out again, but she has once. And so the king, who is a tyrant, his children end up disappearing into the woods and basically forces her to go in and get them out. And it follows her finding the children and her, you know, interacting with various creatures in the forest, just trying to survive. And it was so well done. And I was honestly, while I feel like I knew where this was going, I was still really on the edge of my seat and like really kind of like anxious about what was going to happen in here. And I think the writing was just really fantastic, and I don't think I've seen a single person talk about this, and I really think a lot of people would really like this. And I don't know if this book has found its audience, but I just think it's really interesting and well done. And it's just a really short, uneasy horror novel, and if that's your jam, I definitely recommend this. Number 3 is What Was an Overhyped Book, and for this one I'm choosing How Does It Feel by Janine O'Reilly. This one, oh my god, I'd seen this absolutely everywhere. I'd seen this all over TikTok. I ended up seeing this all over Goodreads, and then I saw it in the shop and I was like, oh my god, like I'm really excited for this because it's been hyped up so much and people were raving about it, about how fantastic it was and how like twisty and turny and everything it was. And don't get me wrong, it does have a twist that sort of got me, but it wasn't enough to save the rest of the book. This was terrible. To me, at least, like this was laughable. And the writing was something, and the characters were also something. And I did vlog my experience reading this as well, so if you want to check that out, I do recommend, because it is evident in that video how much I didn't enjoy this book. And I still don't understand how this was as hyped as it got, because a lot of the time when a book is overhyped or hyped up a lot, like I get it, like I understand why. There's usually a reason for it. It's popular for a reason. It hits a lot of people and it has a broad audience. Like that is why a book can be overhyped or popular. But this one just isn't good and I don't get it. Next up is a book that surprised you, and for this one I'm going to go with Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. Now this is the 3rd book in the series, but it was the first book I read by her because they're interconnected standalone novels, and I was not expecting for this book to hit me as hard as it did. I was literally sobbing. I was bawling my eyes out reading this. I loved the characters so much. I haven't been able to stop thinking about this book, and I ended up like annotating and tabbing it. This book just ended up meaning so much more to me than I ever expected. In that same vein, the next question is a new favorite author that you've discovered this year. So Abby Jimenez, obviously. I ended up reading Part of Your World and Yours Truly after I finished Just for the Summer, and I loved both of these so much as well. This one has the male main character who really suffers with really bad anxiety, and I really liked how that was portrayed, and they're writing letters back and forth to each other in the hospital that they work at, and it was so cute. And then this one was also just really well done. Like I love all of the characters and all of the couples in this series so much, and this whole series just, I don't know, it has a special place in my heart now. Like it's just, they were so good, and she's definitely one of my new favorite authors. I need to read the rest of her book still, but I loved it. And then I also want to mention that Sarah A. Parker, who's the author of When the Moon Hatched, I can't even describe to you how much I loved this book. This book and the writing, I feel like in my heart I know that this is going to be an author I am obsessed with for the rest of my life. Like she's gonna be up there with Laini Taylor, Sarah J. Maas. I'm really glad I read that this year as well, and I cannot wait for the next book to come out. Wow. Next up is, what is the happiest book you read this year? This one was a little hard to answer because I haven't gone out of my way to read specifically sad books or anything like that, and you'd think that a lot of like the rom-coms and stuff are, you know, they are inherently happy books most of the time and they always have happy endings, but it was still really difficult. But I would have to go with Daydream by Hannah Grace. The 2 main characters, I just really loved how they communicated and were there for each other, and like the book setting in here as well, with Haley running the book club and then Henry like getting involved in like bits and pieces of her life and really like falling for her. It was just really cute. It made me really happy, and I thoroughly enjoyed my time reading this. I love this couple so much. Next up is, what is the saddest book that I've read this year? And usually you'd hear someone who had just read If He Had Been With Me say If He Had Been With Me for saddest book of the year, but no, it was Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. What a surprise. This, again, like all of the blue tabs that you see here, I don't know if you can see it very well, but they are all parts that I was sobbing at, and purple all means like a lot to me personally as well. And so with all of the blue and the purple tabs here, yeah, this was definitely the saddest book of the year for me, but also it was happy in a lot of the ways as well. But I cried so hard in this book. Next up are, what are your favorite covers of the year? This one was kind of hard because I really have a lot of favorites, but I really want to say House of Flame and Shadow by Sarah J Maas. I'm obsessed with these covers. There's a lot going on, but they are undeniably so pretty. And then I also have When the Moon Hatched, and I have 3 copies of this book because I have a problem. So I got the Fairyloot edition, which also I'm obsessed with. I've got the Lock Library, and then the normal like UK Waterstones edition. I'm obsessed with these covers as well. Then I also really love Heavenly Bodies. This is again the Fairyloot edition, but I think it is so pretty. And even like the normal version of this book is like absolutely gorgeous as well. So I really like that one. I love Scaffolding, which I don't know, it's eerie and it's creepy, and I really like the artwork. I love Feybound. I think it's so pretty, and I love the foiling, and it's simple but kind of complicated at the same time. There's so many pretty covers. Next question is a book you haven't stopped thinking about, and are we surprised? Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. I'm not going to talk about that one any longer, but the next one is Supernova by Marissa Meyer. I finally finished this trilogy this year, and I loved every second, and the shit that happens in this book, in the finale of this series, I can't even describe how wild of a ride it was, and my mind is constantly blown. And the epilogue as well, I also cannot stop thinking about, because I really want a spin-off off of this, but I don't think we're gonna get it. But I love this series. I love this book. I haven't been able to stop thinking about it since I read this book, and it was just so good. It was such a good conclusion to the end of the series. Hang on, my battery is flashing at me, so I'm gonna go change that. Okay, we're back. A book that you thought you'd love but didn't. So again, if he had been with me, I really thought I would love this. But next, I have Wild Love by Elsie Silver. Now, I don't know why I love this so much, because I haven't read any of Elsie Silver's other books. I haven't read the Chestnut Springs series, which everyone loves, and everyone was really hyped for this one because of that series. But this one, again, I think I gave it a 3 stars, so it wasn't bad. It just, I was really expecting to be blown away by this author's writing and her characters, and I just didn't really care for a lot of it. And I'm going to continue the series because I might have just not gelled enough with the characters. I just really expected me to love this a lot more than I did, and I'm kind of disappointed because, yeah, I really thought this was going to be like a 4 or 5 star read, but it just wasn't. Next is a book with the most unique concept you've read this year. This one, I might have just changed my mind in this very second, I'm not gonna lie. My original answer was When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker, because in this world, the dragons are moons, and they kind of like desiccate and go up into the sky, and there's a really unique magic system as well. And the world building is really interesting as well, because one half of the world is called the Shade, and it's really cold and freezing, and they have their own specific type of dragon. And then there is it the Burn? Yeah, the Burn. So the Burn is, as the name suggests, a really hot desert climate, and they have their own dragons to kind of live in there. And then there is the in-between, which is called the Fade. And I thought it was, I think it's a really unique world and concept and magic system, and I still really think that. But now, just looking down, I want to say Remarkably Bright Creatures, because This one, when I was trying to describe this to people, when I was telling them what I was reading at the time, it was really weird and hard to describe. This is about a woman named Tova whose husband has died. She's working at an aquarium. She is an elder lady and she's just kind of getting by, and she ends up befriending an octopus, and the octopus ends up getting really attached to her as well. He escapes his tank sometimes, and he ends up helping her kind of solve the mystery of her son who went missing many years ago. There are other storylines kind of happening and intersecting here and there as well, but this one does feel very unique because when I try to describe to people that I'm like, yeah, no, she's just really good friends with this octopus, but they can't speak to each other. No, it's not some sort of like octopus woman romance thing. Like, that's not what this book is at all. But yeah, I don't know, it's hard to describe, but it was fantastic. Next is a book that you read this year that you would reread, and again I would go with Remarkably Bright Creatures. I feel like in my first reread I was a little bit confused. I still really enjoyed it, but there was a lot kind of going on to put together, but I think I would get a lot more out of this on a second read, despite me really enjoying it the first time as well. Like I mentioned earlier, When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker, I definitely want to reread this before the next one comes out as well, because there was a lot going on in here, and it's a very thick book as well, and I do think I will get benefit out of rereading this. The last question is to reflect on your Goodreads goal. So my Goodreads goal this year was 40, and when I set this, I had read 63 books the previous year and 80 books in 2022, which was my best reading year ever. And I was like, oh, I'll set 40. It'll be a little bit higher than my previous goal of 30 books last year. But it's, you know, I'm not putting the pressure on myself. And I only just met it. I read 43 books this year. A lot of them were very short stories. And this was probably one of my worst reading years in a while, and I'm not saying that 40 books isn't enough to read at all, because it is still a decent amount of books, but for me, I spent so much of my time just not prioritizing reading. I was really struggling to balance things a lot this year, so I do really want to, I think I'm going to aim to read 40 again in the coming year, but I do really want to prioritize reading more again, because it is something that brings me so much joy. There was just a lot that happened this year that did kind of occupy my mind a lot more, and that made reading kind of take a backseat a little bit, and I want to be able to balance those things a little bit better in the new year in 2025. So yes, I am simultaneously like happy I only made it as 40, because, you know, I've never been the type of person to read 150 books in a year. Like, a lot of the time I will just end up like rotting on the couch watching TV or something, and I just want to switch my brain off, and for a lot of the time, like, reading doesn't allow me to do that, especially if I'm, you know, just home from work or something like that. And so it is harder for me to hit those goals while working full-time, and I'm okay with that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Reflecting on this year at the very least, and like only kind of just scraping by my goal of 40 books, I do really want to make it more of a priority. And there's so many books that I want to get to that I want to read so badly, so I really want to make it a priority so I can get to those books finally as well. So that is about it for these questions and the end of year book tag, or book tags combined. But I hope you enjoyed. I'm going to leave this video here for now, but if you want to answer any of the questions with your own reading answers down below, feel free to. I'd love to see what you have read and reflected on this year for your reading as well. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a fantastic day or night wherever you are, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.